What is that eager's note taker?
Let's see how many note takers we can have on this call.
Yeah, I'm a little confused because it said recording in progress, but I don't think it's the recording that I that I normally do.
Yeah, Igor's got his own AI
Yeah.
note taker that he uses. Yeah, it's never been a problem.
Okay. Well, we are also recording on our end.
Just give a few more minutes. So conference all went well then?
It was great.
Yeah.
Yes. I was able to meet up with a bunch of the core developers for the 2.4.0.0 release. I put in the chat, activation is set to occur later today, roughly 12 hours. So if anyone has not upgraded that's here, please do. I will say that the conference itself was interesting. Overall, is a little more subdued than last year, which we normally see in bear markets. But was still a lot of good talks happened. Met a lot of interesting people. Saw a lot of welcome, familiar faces, which was always good.
So what would you say was the top three kind of your own takeaway from the conference?
I'm a bad person to ask because I had very specific goals when I went down there, and that was to speak to the other core developers in person.
Okay. Right. Let's get started. Let me share my screen. I don't know if Marvin is around today, but it'd be great to have more steering committee members today. Let's see. Okay. But I think people in the room can probably give updates. Right. Let's see. Sorry, I've got a bit of background noise going on. Right, screen share. Okay. So yeah. Thank you everybody for coming to steering committee May update. I'll keep it brief today. I think people are probably still busy from aftermath of the conference and with other work. So yeah, 26th of May, SIP code number 45. Just to give a quick introduction to what steering committee is about, because I see somebody who might have not attended this meeting before. So steering committee is the last sort of is the steward of the SIP process, and they basically look out for things the community want, and not necessarily always be the person who decides which direction well a SIP is or has to be, but rather, from my understanding at least, yeah, like helps to guide the technology improvements and governance improvement of the greater community, not just their own opinion. And we have Marvin, Jude, and Gina on the steering committee. Marvin works as a founder of Rider. Jude, unfortunately, is on leave, but he works as a Stacks Foundation as a co-developer. We have Gina on the call. I don't know if Gina want to say a quick word.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Gina, Chief of Staff at Trust Machines. I've been working in the Stacks community for 6 years. And yeah, I think the steering committee is really here as sort of a facilitator of process more than anything.
Thank you so much. And we really need people who in the weeds of Stacks and who really care about Stacks to really help guide the whole SIP process. So these people are like the true stackers. I don't want to say true stackers, but that's why we really appreciate these people to help guide and facilitate the direction of the blockchain. So just to give a quick May update, we have had a few SIPs, emergency SIPs this month. SIP 22, which involves 2 hard forks. SIP 23 was also a bug fix for something. SIP 24 was also a bug fix, 4 bug fix. That's my understanding. So in total, there were 4 hard forks, which is not a trivial thing. But through this, I believe like every committee, SIP editors, the caps, and the steering committee all have reviewed it and gave it their thumbs up. And that is part of the SIP process, that we have people in place to review these proposals so that it's not just centralized, decided by a small number of group of people. So that's what really that's the biggest sort of events that happened in May, I would say. And there are a few things to look forward to in the coming months. One of them is a Bitcoin MEV, and I think often MEV is something slightly separate, but might be together in the conversation. But I don't know if Jesse knows more about it, but yeah, I think there's a conversation later today about it too. So that's up and coming. And obviously we still have the SIP 21 SBTC and Nakamoto upgrade sort of continuously working in the background. That's the next biggest upgrade for Q4 or this year, I believe. Yeah, if anybody got any comments or anything to add.
Yes, there is a MEV call shortly after this call. It's on the community.stacks.org calendar. Everyone's invited. It is a public call.
And do you know, Jesse, how are all the SIP 22 to 24 doing? Are they all okay now? Are they all on track? And we're due to turn on the POC3 and stuff.
Yes, so POC3 is scheduled to activate later today, roughly 12 hours. The next cycle begins roughly Monday. We're working on creating like a countdown timer for that as well, just so we know when it happens. Several miners have upgraded, exchanges, other partners have all upgraded. So the activation later today should really be a non-event. And then once the cycle starts, you know, hopefully everything works as expected, which we believe it will. All of our tests were successful, and we're very confident in this release. The SIPs themselves, as far as I'm aware, they're all in good shape. We may have to finalize a few things. I think like the SIP status, but as far as I'm aware, they're all good.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, just for those who are listening, I know Across is also part of that conversation. The status on the actual GitHub, which I kind of simplify, going like a bit of paperwork. like we have approval in Discord and we have and they being added to GitHub, but the status, the actual label on the GitHub, it's just a little bit behind because we were working out the process of how to go about it, to put simply. And we are using this experience to come up with a really SOP to make sure all the status and labeling is gonna be smoother next time, basically. So yeah, that's sort of in the works. Yeah. And just to ask a question, I don't know if anybody got any other questions, but I thought to throw a few questions out there for this call. I don't know if Jesse can answer or Gina. What's the difference between Bitcoin MEV and Orphan MEV?
They are quite different. I would actually change the question here. It's Orphan MEV doesn't make a lot of sense. It should just be like orphan blocks.
Okay.
Yeah. So that, yeah. So they're quite different issues. I was asking specifically about this in one of our blockchain calls. They have to be addressed differently, different approaches for each. So Pravitra is working on the Bitcoin MEV issue, and that's what the call later today is about. But essentially it is miners not paying the same fees to mine a block. They're essentially censoring Stacks transactions when they mine a Stacks block, which is bad. Orphan blocks are very different phenomena. Essentially, what I have seen most recently is two miners with different views of the network state will mine the same block. And then one of them eventually is chosen, and then you end up with an orphan block. Usually when I look into it deeper, there are a few commonalities. Either a miner is poorly peered, or we see Bitcoin blocks coming faster than usual. And I know that Frieger has a SIP, I think it's poll 142, that is meant to address this. He also has some different ideas he's added to the forum. So I encourage everyone to look at Frieger's poll 142. I'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah, that's great. So would both of these be addressed at the same time, or do they have to be two separate paths?
They have to be addressed separately in a different way for each. They're two fundamentally different problems.
Because I don't want to get into too much detail, but there's a lot of, we are actually seeing lots of users being affected by orphan blocks.
Yes,
That's
those are
almost
far.
more, that's showing even more than the Bitcoin NAV from a user perspective. Lately.
Yes, yeah, they have different impacts for each. Orphan blocks are usually, we only see that affecting like larger players, like Alex or Binance, people like that.
Yeah.
MEV affects everyone who is stacking.
Yeah, we get lower yield basically.
Exactly, yeah. So there's two fundamentally different things, but they have different impacts. Different approaches are needed to solve each. Yeah, now that 2.4.0.0 is released and being activated later today, our focus at the foundation is literally those two issues. So we're looking into them directly now.
So we probably touched on a little bit, actually, just to circle back, why should people care about these two things?
Yeah, they should care. MEV, because the rate of yield you get from stacking will be lower if we have MEV blocks. With the orphan blocks, a transaction can be rolled back if you're not confirming with enough blocks. So if you have an orphan block length of, let's say, 8, and you're only confirming for 6, potentially a transaction you sent could be sent back to the mempool. So each one is very important. We're going to look at each individually and try to address them both quickly. But it's not something we can just do immediately. We still have a lot of research that needs to be done.
So to put my own question is the open NAV, could anchor block be reversed basically? Like if something got confirmed in anchor block and then later it's back to the mempool basically.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, understand. Do you know when the draws will be published?
There is a public draft that Parita has shared in Discord and a few other places, I think on the forum as well, around MEV for the orphan blocks. I know Frigger has added some, he added that zip, and he also has a forum post addressing some of the proposals to resolve it. I'll see if we can find the forum post while you're speaking.
And I guess these, do they have additional functionality like new features, or are these more of a sort of like maintenance fix?
I wouldn't say either. These are just growing pain fixes. So it's not going to be an additional feature. It's going to shore up behavior that already exists on the chain and make it more secure.
Cool. Any call to action for people?
Yeah, just I want more eyes on Frigger's SIP that I put in the chat, 142. If everyone has comments, please make them there. And once I find the forum post, I'll put it in the chat as well. I encourage people to read through it, and if they have ideas or suggestions, they can add there.
Awesome. So it sounds like we need more conversation around the final.
Yes, more community involvement on these proposals. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, good to know. Right. I'll move on to what's going on there. A bit of update on the other SIP efforts. So SIP editors committee is actually going well, and we are trying to be on the front line of the SIP proposals and sort of reviewing them, offering advice. And we've had 7 Twitter space calls so far. And we signed up actually for emergency SIPs. And we're still refining and making suggestions how we could better collaborate with the whole SIP process. If we're currently facilitating the multi-sig wallet SIP, and we are sort of officially publishing our commentary or status or suggestion from us as a group, just so that we can help them keep the thing moving along. Otherwise, sometimes things just get lost and the conversation stops, and the new people don't, and also like newcomers who propose SIPs, they don't really know where to go or who to speak to. And us as a SIP editors committee or SIP editors group can be leveraged to further along the people's ideas basically, and also looking into when the Bitcoin MBV and orphan blocks are more finalized. I think SIP editors can also be part of the educational process to help community understand what it's about. So better communication with the greater community and more highlights to the community about everything to do with SIPs, including this high impact ones. Yeah, and SBTC is going along pretty nicely, and Andrew is giving weekly updates regularly on Twitter and on Stacks forum. So that's also somewhat related to SIP, because that's essentially a big SIP. So just making people aware. So I'm gonna open the floor to see if anybody got any questions or comments. I know Kaylee might have a question for us. So yeah, feel free to unmute.
Yeah, I had a question. I'm not sure if somebody's working on this, but there's been a lot of talk around S ordinals, so ordinals bridged over the stacks just to capture a lot of the ordinal activity. Some users I saw in the ecosystem were questioning whether or not this was being worked on, so I just wanted to ask that here. Is something like that being worked on, S ordinals, to allow people to bridge their ordinals over from Bitcoin to stacks? Is that something that would be something that's realistic? Is it something that's already being worked on? Those are just my questions.
I don't think that there's a SIP for it yet, but it has been considered as sort of part of the broader SBTC plan. I'm not 100% sure if it's something that is being proceeded with, given there's a lot of other efforts for SBTC operating in parallel. But I think Andre would actually be the best point of contact for that. If you are able to reach out to him, he's the SBTC resident who would, he's tracking all of the launch plans, etc.
Awesome. I'll have to reach out and get more information from him on that, but that sounds like a really awesome initiative. Hopefully, if it doesn't get put in action now, hopefully maybe it'll get looked at later, but I'll definitely reach out to him for more information. Thanks, Keely. No worries.
Is there a sort of timeline or urgency you guys are seeing with Xverse? Like, is it like users really want that now, or is it something they can wait?
I would say it's not really an Xverse issue. I've just been perusing the community, the Stacks community chats, and I see that it's becoming a really hot topic, especially with BRC20 tokens. Some people just feel like Stacks is kind of being left out of the limelight, and just some concern that Stacks might get left behind, which I don't think is necessarily the case, but it just a lot of chatter from the community to see if it something like that does exist.
Cool. Yeah, I don't think there's a like specific targeted forum post about S ordinals. It might be great if somebody actually posts about it, so it can be a more of a concentrated chat. I think Kaylee, like even like you can post, I could post, anybody can post about S ordinal. So if you really want to see this happen, I would actually suggest that you create a post about S ordinals and your exact comment, what you raise here. Maybe you are seeing the demand or seeing a lot of chatters. Yeah, just offer you know, the developers the perspective and the context of which why you want you think this is worth doing, because a lot of things like this can only happen if it's a bit of chicken and egg problem. Like you know, if there's a lot of demand, then the developer might actually shift their focus a little bit, but until they hear or see the context, they might just treat it as a low priority thing. So it's all about like driving the conversation sometimes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can definitely make a forum post asking around, and I'll definitely reach out to Andre. So yeah.
John, you know, from NeoSwap.
Yeah.
And Andre, I think these two, and maybe even what's up, Ragnar, like those three people seem to be the most keen on having S ordinals. Yeah, so those three people are good people to reach out to.
Gotcha. Will do. Thanks for the information, Hero. Thanks, guys.
Nice. Happy Stack, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just wondering if anyone from the dev side of things knows how an S ordinal would even work on Stacks. I'm trying to wrap my head around how that would work. You said it was related to SBTC. It's something that can be done without SBTC. Does anyone even know here how that would work? Just curious. silence is okay here because when I heard that, I was like, is that even an option? And I have like a limited understanding of how these things work, even as a developer. So
I'm not a dev, but from the previous conversation I've heard before, it's almost like you peg in your BTC and you get a Bitcoin derivative, but this Bitcoin derivative is very trustless. And it's
it's almost like a
not,
bridge for an ordinal.
yeah,
kind
it's
of.
not like centrally issued, like,
Yeah.
SBTC is not gonna be centrally issued. It's gonna be very trustless. It's
Yeah.
gonna be threshold signature. There's gonna be ability to peg in, peg out permissionlessly. And I think the similar sort of mental model could be used on as ordinal, where you were packing your ordinal and then you get like a derivative that's on a small contract where you can do much more things with it, but issued very trusted, you can't say trustless, but very trust minimized way.
Okay, cool.
But I don't know exact technical details, how that is actually done, underneath the hood, so to speak. And if you really want to know how that could be done, I don't know if you're aware, there's Discord server of the like just SBTC developers. If you have questions, you could actually ask them, maybe, or just post your question in Stacks Discord. I think they'll be happy to answer you.
Yeah, I was about to ask for that Discord link. Thank you, Gina.
Yeah. Oh, cool. That's already a link. Nice. Yeah, it's a very developer heavy Discord. So, and then obviously just be respectful of their time, because they are basically heads down using that Discord as a working Discord to develop SBTC. Yeah. Any other comments or thoughts about SIP related stuff or governance? Happy stuff.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Just, I think that orphan MEV problem and having transactions, get stuck on the Stacks network for people using Alex and people just using the big swaps. That's a problem for my app, in that, if an anchor block is reverted, I'm not really sure how I could, just based on how my algorithm reads transactions, I'm not really sure if I'm even correcting for that right now, but I can kind of just restart from block. I think it was like 25,000, which is the first transaction I care about, and parse it, and it wouldn't take longer than like 20 minutes. So it's not really a big deal. But that, I'm happy to hear that that's kind of the next focus for the Stacks Core developers.
Could you give a little bit of context, like what you're doing and how that's affecting you?
Well, I don't know if it's affecting me, but if
Yeah.
anchor block transactions can be reverted, I'm pretty sure the way I'm parsing Stacks FT transactions using the Hero PostgreSDB is I'm checking if the block is if the transaction is canonical, and I think we're saying that potentially canonical transactions could eventually get reverted or not be put through, and that would mean that my volume or my 1 hour trading volume, things like that, would be incorrect because the transaction never actually happened, right? Something like that. I don't know if that's exactly what's happening or if that's even possible, but
That's
yeah.
fairly accurate. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
so
could absolutely happen.
So yeah, like considering that, some of the data on Stack Screener, which, there's a big disclaimer at the top, but some of the data on it may be not entirely accurate. And it's something that I can revert back. It requires a little manual work, but it's not the worst thing in the world. But just for the health of the ecosystem and, people coming in and knowing that I'm a developer in the space, they go, hey, like, why isn't my transaction? Like, I have friends that are working, or not working, but are buying and trading coins and things, and they're like, hey man, this transaction has gone through. Do you know why? And I'm like, well, I'm not a Rust developer, but I know that there's a problem right now.
I do want to add that it's not frequent.
No, it doesn't
So-
seem frequent. It's only happened like anecdotally. It's only happened like a few times, and I have guys that are making like many trades trying to arbitrage Welsh across exchanges,
Yeah.
and they can do that if they want, you know?
Yeah, I mean, forks happen all the time in blockchains. So I try to keep track of how long forks are when I notice them. The longest I've seen was during the BRC20 craze, roughly 2-3 weeks ago. That was, I think it was 11 blocks long, which was insane. Previously, the longest I had seen was 7 about a year ago. Typically, the most we'll see is 2 to 3. So 2 to 3 is the normal I would expect, which still isn't great, and we can do better. But it's when something happens on the parent chain, in this case Bitcoin, that can really affect the length of the orphan blocks. So
Right.
when BRC20 was happening, what I was noticing was Bitcoin blocks were coming very quickly over an extended period of time, a couple hours, like 2 or 3 hours. We saw the average block time was, I think, like 5 or 6 minutes. Some of them were coming a minute after the previous block. And it's just, yeah, it didn't work out well for us. But yeah, we definitely have to do better there.
So I guess like a kind of temporary solution, maybe I can just parse up to a certain block number. Like maybe
Yeah.
that's, it's not the worst, but obviously real-time data is kind of the advantage here, but even
Yep.
still, we're talking real time when sometimes the block times are an hour long, right? So does it really, what is really real time until we're in Nakamoto? So,
I mean, there are some things you can do actually. I know we're kind of getting off topic here,
sure.
but like you can possibly detect if the block you're looking at does have an orphan, and then display a message saying, "Hey, this is an orphan block. It may not be accurate in 20 minutes."
And then kind of just revert. I can, yeah, okay. I can kind of put those
Yeah,
into a pool or into a queue and just kind of check them.
yeah.
And if I
mean,
notice that they are orphaned later on, I can just remove all transactions from that block from my calculations. Then I'm kind of good. It's not a bad idea.
yeah, something like that.
It's the fun thing about programming. You can kind of do anything. You just got to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Let's do it. Yeah, so just to let people know, in addition to the Bitcoin MEV discussion today, there's actually because all these hard forks, I think, made us realize some testings procedures could be improved. So there's going to be some kind of discussion and retro next Wednesday, 31st of May at 10 a.m. ET. So please join that one if you're interested to help Stacks improve the way we test the upgrades. And this is super important actually, so that we don't end up having to keep doing bug fixes afterwards. Hopefully it'll be all tested out smooth before launch completely, or cannot be completely, absolutely, but as much as possible. And yes, today there will be a Bitcoin MVP discussion at 1:30 Eastern time. I will drop the link in the chat. It's actually on the community calendar, just so that people aren't aware. So this is the Happy Stacks. So this is the community calendar, and you can see on there today's event. Yeah, and I'll drop the actual event link. So if anybody want to attend, please just subscribe it, and there's a link to the Zoom in the actual invite link. Right, cool. I think that's all. Yeah, thank you everybody for coming, and see you next week.
Thank you. See you.
See you, everyone.
Bye.